How does it feel to be a sports fan and see someone wearing a jersey supporting your team? Feels pretty nice, right? Well, what about if you see someone wearing a sweatshirt from the college that you went to? Because of psychology, you automatically have something to talk about. Or maybe you're traveling abroad and you see someone in a hat that says they're from the United States, or even your specific hometown. It's natural to feel more comfortable and trusting whenever you know someone similar is around. But also, what happens when you see someone from a rival sports team? Why do these feelings happen? Why are we more likely to trust someone just because of their sports team affiliation, where they grew up, or other factors that may be similar to us? And why do we inherently fear or distrust people who don't belong into these groups? One explanation is the idea called the in-group bias. Now, this video is all about the in-group bias and how it may shield our judgment whenever we judge others, distribute resources, or make other decisions. Now, this can be an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially when it involves groups like people of a certain race, ethnicity, or gender. But I can say the more that we truly understand our implicit biases, then only can we start to overcome them and create a more fair world for everyone. So first off, what is the in-group bias? In-group bias, or in-group favoritism, is a bias in which people tend to favor others who exist in similar groups as themselves. These groups could be formed by gender, race, ethnicity, hair color, or even a favorite sports team. Because of the in-group bias, we tend to overwhelmingly favor people who are similar to us and belong to our groups. However, in-group bias is not just related to thoughts and preferences. We are also more likely to act if the actions are more likely to favor the members of the in-group. Now, of course, on a dark side, this means that we're more likely to look down on people who exist outside of our groups. But I'll talk more about that in my video on outgroup bias. If you turn on the news today, in-group bias is pretty easy to spot. It's not one of the most hidden ideas in the world of social psychology. In-group bias isn't exactly a standalone concept either. There are a few other theories that support the idea of in-group bias. One of these theories is the social identity theory. Henry Tajfel coined the term in the 1970s after conducting a series of experiments on how we form groups and our individual identities. This theory breaks down the process of developing an identity into three basic parts: categorization, identification, and comparison. During the comparison stage, we compare our groups to other groups. We compare ourselves to people in those other groups. And you might not be surprised to learn that whenever we make these comparisons, we often favor ourselves and people in our in-groups. Another theory that supports the idea of in-group bias, but exists outside the world of social psychology, is generalized reciprocity. Now, generalized reciprocity is the idea that also exists both in economics and anthropology. Reciprocity occurs when one person exchanges goods and services for another person. It's like when you buy your friend coffee, and not to treat them, but just with the unspoken agreement that maybe in the future they'll get the next coffee. Reciprocity is most likely to happen in our tightest in-groups. Our family and our close friends are the ones that we can trust to buy us a coffee later. So moving on, further studies have tried to pinpoint at what age people actually start to experience in-group bias. And the answer isn't always clear, but one study showed that boys could show in-group bias as young as 3 years old. Something that I think is important to note is that in-group bias is not a fixed mindset. Other studies show that people may display more or less in-group bias due to external factors. And in one study, men displayed in-group bias towards people of a similar political party during parts of the election cycle, but cooled off during others. Their biases may not have had much to do with biology or neuroscience. Instead, the presence of tension or conflict may have been more influential. Now let's talk about some positives of the in-group bias. Think back to the sports jersey example I mentioned at the beginning of this video. You could see a complete stranger wearing that jersey and naturally give them a smile or a nod. One study actually showed that when people saw similar sports fans getting injured, they were more likely to feel empathy, even if they didn't even know the fans personally. This is really big in social psychology, because we are more willing to help people in our in-groups, even when they owe us nothing and we've had no interactions with them previously. In fact, this type of bonding is necessary for our well-being. Maslow's hierarchy of needs lists belonging, a sense of belonging, as a base-level psychological need. It sits right above basics like food, water, safety, and shelter. So whenever we recognize people who are in our in-group, we feel that sense of belonging. And because we naturally trust or appreciate fellow in-group members, we feel trusted and appreciated in return. We get all these good feelings and endorphin rush just from seeing someone in a sports jersey, a college sweatshirt, or an American flag hat. Unfortunately, if there's an in-group, there also has to be an out-group. Our tendency to act in a way that benefits the in-group may also result in us taking resources from the out-group. This idea goes all the way back to social identity theory, which may have been developed out of primal needs to survive on limited resources. By taking or distributing resources, like food or housing or jobs, based on the in-group bias, people may be leaving out those in out-groups. And examples of this process are not difficult to find. This is why programs like affirmative action or affordable housing exist. It's why there is big discussion going on in the country about the wage gap between men and women. In the past, the people leading our country have largely been a part of one in-group, white, straight, rich men. So it's no surprise that a majority of people in leadership positions or at the top of the food chain have typically been white, straight, rich men. But as we begin to discuss in-group bias and what place it has on our society, we may start to see changes to how our leadership looks and how resources are distributed. If there's anything to know about in-group bias, it's that by studying it, we can better understand it. And hopefully, by understanding it a little better, we can create a more free and fair world. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on the in-group bias, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below or watch the rest of my social psychology videos.